By the way, Bernie Sanders doing his bit to try to talk again about how unconstitutional all of this is, and then let's turn our attention to our leadership here. And then Sophie Ellsworth will join us in a moment or two from Israel. You're watching a 2-hour edition of Paul Murray Live, where we will also be hearing from the US Defence Secretary Pete Hegseth in a moment or two's time.
And I want to tell you something. Not only is this news that I've just heard this second alarming, that all of you have just heard, but it is so grossly unconstitutional. All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The President does not have the right.
No, Paul, the left have just lost it. One thing I just wanted to mention to you, the complicating factor here when you go outside this particular issue, of course, we talked about how Putin is going to be critical, the Iranian foreign minister going there, they're asking him for help. Of course, Trump and the rest of the Western world needs Putin's help to end the war in Ukraine. Correct. Putin is a savvy operator. To stay out of Iran, to make sure he doesn't give support to Iran, he might try and strengthen his hand in Ukraine. Watch out for that in coming days.
The Australian government wants de-escalation. Now, of course, if we'd followed every single time, the Australian government says pull back, well, history would be very different after the period of time of October the 7th, certainly. Those very groups we've been talking about tonight that have been able to launch missiles, to interrupt trade, to keep things coming from the north, and even the situation now of, remember, if the Iranians were, let's say, 60, 70, 80% close enough to a bomb, you just keep gibbering until you get to 100%, right? Oh, push it off, push it off, push it off. Well, that's basically what the Australian government's position has been through all of this. Andrew Hastie has spoken on the behalf of the opposition in the past couple of hours. His response, a little more clear-eyed, and I would suggest where the majority of Australians are when it comes to stopping a country having a nuclear bomb that has promised to wipe another one off the map.
This is a regime committed to the destruction of Israel and our allies, like the United States. It's also a highly repressive regime which has persecuted women, dissidents, religious minorities, and that is why we support the actions today.
All right, of course. So Penny Wong, Foreign Minister, de-escalation Prime Minister, about a week ago, said that it wasn't Australia's war. I won't lie, as somebody who, not quite MAGA wing, but has been part of that, hey, I don't want to get into the third version of difficult things over the past 20 years. I didn't hate that statement then, but certainly after action has been taken for the Australian government to basically go back to the geez, we wish it didn't happen position. Pretty weird, Sherry.
Look, the Australian government is so irrelevant now. It has given up its seat at the table because of stupid statements like this. The night of October 7, when families were still searching for their loved ones, their bodies weren't even cold yet, Penny Wong called for restraint. A week ago on Sunday, she went on Insiders after the Israeli strikes in Iran. She said she called for de-escalation and dialogue. There was some equivalence between Iran and Israel, calling for both sides to show restraint. Richard Marles, this morning, 2 hours before the strikes, he didn't know they were coming. I'd heard about it. Why hadn't he? Is Australia not being shared information in the Five Eyes intelligence circles now? He again was calling for a return to dialogue. Israel and Iran haven't had dialogue since pre-1979. What dialogue does he want them to return to? This is absurd. It is so... the Australian government is useless. How can they not endorse America and Israel removing the nuclear threat of Iran, a threat that doesn't exclude Australia? No. It is utterly shocking that Albanese can't say we welcome this. Thank you, President, for making our world safer today. None of them can say it, and you know why? Because of their blind hatred towards Israel. They can't say anything that endorses the actions of Israel. Well, that's what it comes down to.
And we'll see whether we hide behind statements, we hope things move on to another couple of days, or does he go to NATO, where there'll be yet another, and again, the Australian media will get very excited about being able to do body language suggestions about potential meetings between the President and the Prime Minister. But again, the Australian government response today.
Just pathetic, Paul. Just pathetic. Now, I wrote in the Weekend Australian about this on the weekend, and then today with the military action happens, it's even more pathetic. They're still talking about de-escalation and dialogue. It's pathetic. Now, the point here is, for the reasons I've outlined earlier about how this action by Israel and America makes the world a safer place. Therefore, it's in Australia's strategic interests that we support this action. And we've been pathetic. We have not given Israel any support or the US any support for moral support, diplomatic support. None of our words have given them any support. And strategically, it's in Australia's interest to do so. Secondly, in moral terms, of course, as a nation that stands up for freedom and democracy, we should be standing for nations who are free and democratic against theocratic dictatorships that are trying to take them out. So on a moral level and on a strategic level, Australia should have supported this action and hasn't. But the killer is the third point, and that is they've actually hurt Australia's alliance relationship with the US by being so piss weak. Yep. All they had to do was do the right thing. 100%. And the bonus was, guess what? Anthony Albanese was actually quite useful to America. Sure, we haven't got all the money and weapons they would love. They're much bigger and more powerful than us. We all know that. But our voice of support in diplomatic circles as a free and democratic nations would have helped them. It helps them diplomatically. They would have liked it. We haven't even taken that opportunity.